Heath, I got to ask you the same thing we ask all our guests. How is the pandemic treating you? Is your family safe and healthy? Has it been, plus minuses? Are there silver linings? How's it going with you and your family?
It's been really good. It's kind of it's unfortunate it happened. It's unfortunate we've been home, but it's also been kind of a cool deal for us. I have young kids, so just being home, we'll spend some time with them, a lot more this off season. It's funny as I found myself, we have two older kids are in school and my wife's kind of taking the school side of it. So we have a young daughter named Dylan who's 3. So here I was saying, okay, I'll just take this one so I don't have to do the school. But then I got myself where I was having to do her hair every morning, get her dressed. So I learned how to do ponytails and pigtails and paint nails. And so that's been really cool. I've actually really enjoyed doing all those things that you don't normally get to do as busy as our schedules are. And typically I'm outside with the boys as much as I can. So to get some other time with my daughter and just to spend time with the family's been really good. So we're making the most of it. It's obviously been challenging with the Zoom calls, but it's also been kind of fun. It's kind of seeing guys in their elements, and it's so raw because you got dogs going in the picture, and they're having to parents as they're in the middle of the meeting, hey, calm, tell their kids go away. I'm having to do it too, just like everybody else. It's the reality of being home. But like I said, we're trying to make them, as entertaining as possible for the players. And how can we keep them, it's so different to them. They're so used to routines. So being able to entertain them in different ways through the Zoom and through, this is probably somewhat more familiar to them, but just older coaches and some of these, some of our staff's even, a lot older than I am, but just to be able to adapt to some of these things has been great. And like I said, we make the most of it.
Today is Juneteenth. The Bills are observing it as a holiday, as well as the NFL. Several teams and clubs are closing their offices for the day. We also think it's important. We're going to be on air today. Of course, we're on. We think it's important to listen, to learn, to continue to educate ourselves on the show today. So what have you been doing during this time when racial injustice, when social injustice, when police brutality has been such a hot topic due to the murder of George Floyd? What conversations have you been having with your teammates? How have with your players, how have those gone and things like that?
Yeah, this is, we're all trying to learn. I think it was a real eye-opener, I think, for a lot of us. So I think being able to listen to these guys, we've had some great conversation, whether it was in team meetings or even, kind of on the side, just kind of having these conversations of what some of these guys have gone through. And whether they're older, whether it's like, listen to Coach Frazier or Lorenzo Alexander or even some of our current players. So it's been really good to kind of have an open mind about it and really just understand, I could never be in their shoes. So, I can only just kind of imagine it and trying to, put myself there as best I can and trying to support them and trying to help them out as much as I can.
We've all got to the point where it's obvious that the players have this huge platform that they can use. How big an impact do you think the National Football League can have? Certainly the players more and more feeling a responsibility to take the lead role and use their platform to get a message out. How big could that be given the notoriety and the overall size and attention-grabbing ability of the NFL? How big do you think that? How much do you think it could help for the players to use their platforms like that?
I mean, it's huge. So many times you hear, the platform in a negative way. You hear, sometimes media kind of, goes one direction with it, but there's so much positive with it, and so our guys can take advantage of it, doing the right things and trying to be a good example of it. So I think, any way they can. I mean, these guys are, they're saw in the, they're noticed in the public, they're noticed on TV, young kids look up to them. It's so valuable to set a good example to all that stuff, and people are willing to listen. So take advantage of that platform is really what, the whole Bills organization's, is important to.
Why do you think it's important for an organization as big as the NFL to step up and help fight something that is this big in a league where 75% of the players are Black? Why do you think it's important for the NFL to stand up and say, no, these things aren't right, people aren't being treated equally, and we want to do our part to help fight to end systemic racism?
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it best. There's, we have so many African Americans, in professional sports in general and football more specifically. It's our culture. It's so much is involved with so many of our guys, and you know, and Steve understands this. You know, in sports, you know, more, you know, football, we're friends with these guys. We, you know, it's like they're brothers to us. So we, you know, we're there for them. We want to do what's best, and sometimes we're almost, you know, we see them different. You know, so it's almost. I just wish some teams or some people could see the way, you know, professional sports, or even as a young kid, you know, you know, as a young kid, you know, playing, you know, little league or whatever sport, whether it was, you know, all different races, you just get a different perspective in professional or in sports that you know, is eye opening. These guys are your best buddies, and you don't even really, you know, you don't even realize it like that, you know, and so I think it's a great example of what you know, what the world could see if they were only in a locker room and getting a feel to understand people more than just, you know, the color of their skin.
I agree with you, Heath. It's something that we get gifted as professional athletes to make true lifelong friends with somebody from another race, and to have them love and respect us in return. Plus, we hear firsthand some of the trials and incidences and the scenarios that happen to these guys because they're black that we never even think of happening to us. And for us, I think white players in the NFL who have been in the NFL and who are now have a firsthand knowledge that this is not a made up issue. It's real. It happens all the time. It happens every day, and it happens to our friends. And I think that's given, I think that hurt for us when it happens to us because of our friends' pain has made guys stand up and say, wait a minute, and the white guys as well as the black guys who have used their platform to say, listen, this ain't right. And it does happen. It happens all too often. It happens way too often. And of course, the extremes are George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and the others. Those are the extreme cases. But there's dozens upon hundreds of cases that happen all the time that never make the news. And that's what we're kind of fighting against. And I think it's interesting that you've mentioned it. It's having buddies who this happens to, and as you get rub up against them in the locker room, and they're your friends, and you hear them, and you hear their instances. That's been the most enlightening thing, I think, for a lot of people who are or maybe are not in the National Football League. You've been on these Zoom meetings in the off season. Have you had a chance to listen to some of the instances, or maybe some of that, or you know, how much of that has leaked into perhaps your off season, your virtual off season?
I think it is, and I think we're trying to take a positive approach to it, to hearing these guys out and how can we help, you know, because it's something. Like I said, if our players are dealing with it, it just shows you the rest of the public, you know, the rest of the public in non-sports, you know, are dealing with the exact same thing, if not more, you know, and so it's something, you know, we got to do more, and we're all. You know, I'm trying to educate myself, you know, like I said, the more we can do, the more we can help out, the better it'll be for everybody. And like I said, they're you know, whether it's Jerry or Lorenzo or any of those guys, these are our current players, but they're our current buddies. I mean, you know, I got so much respect for these guys, you know, not only as players, but as humans. They're unbelievable people. And so we're there for them, and we're there to support them and listen to them, and to see what we can do, you know, to help out.
This virtual off season has been one that a lot of us will probably remember forever, because it has just been so weird and so different. And Zoom is probably one of our favorite words during this time. As the virtual off season wraps up, what are your thoughts on how it went? Was there anything that impressed you the most about the team as a whole?
Yeah, you know, I think what impressed me the most was, you know, going into it, first of all, I never heard of Zoom before this.
Same.
Never heard of Zoom. And so we go, you know, they say, we got to do the Zoom. And I'm going, these guys aren't going to learn anything. You know, that was my gut, was like going, I don't know how this is going to work. I don't know if I'm able to teach them through a camera, through a screen. I don't know how it's going to go. And it couldn't be furthest from the truth. You know, these guys bought in, they were full go, whether it was working out or, you know, what they were eating, what they were doing, attentive in meetings, answering questions. I mean, it was amazing how we could reach all these guys across the country. You know, I mean, across the country, guys, we had guys in California having to wake up early to get on Zoom calls, the guys on the East Coast. I mean, it was just all different scenarios and situations. But ultimately, it's kind of weird. It's kind of almost bonded our team, because they knew how hard it would be. They knew it was going to be hard. So guys almost bought in more. Our leadership was fantastic. So they kind of took it and ran with it with accountability. I mean, just in our room, Reed Ferguson, he led the specialists, but he led the whole team. The special teams in general. Reed was a big. Andre Roberts was huge. We had a bunch of guys that kind of took control, of the group and said, we're not gonna use this as an excuse to not be prepared for the season. We're gonna put ourselves in the best spot we can, and we'll see what happens. Come training camp and regular season. But this off season, I'm biased, but I feel like we put our best foot forward and put ourselves in the best possible way you could. Just using the Zoom things, it's tough. This is a tough situation.
Did you learn anything maybe going forward? And certainly you don't want to do everything on Zoom or anything virtual, but did you learn anything about coaching and about how to handle the off season that maybe maybe we will do more of this in the future or less of this other thing? Or, what's been the most surprising thing and maybe what's been the one thing that's impressed you the most about this virtual off season?
Like I said before, it's different for us coaches, the older guys, but these guys, this is almost in their alley,
Right.
This technology stuff. So do we use more of the visual stuff, whether it's drawings and stuff like that? We've had to do more of those, because the tape, we put the tape on and make cut-ups and stuff, but they weren't always really clean. If we had somebody had a bad Wi-Fi and it was hit or miss sometimes. So a lot of times we had to rely on drawings and just going back to the kind of some of the, the what I consider like almost old school stuff where it's just drawings with arrows and stuff like that. But this is kind of where they're at, it's like, this is the technology aspect didn't affect them one bit. It was probably harder on us older coaches, who don't do social media and don't do some of the other stuff, but this is right up their alley,
The Bills did draft Tyler Bass this year, and we've seen some social media videos just about how strong that kid's leg is. You said in immediate availability a couple weeks ago that the job is still Stephen Hauschka's, but there will be competition at that position. Why is it important to have a competition there?
I think it's all positions on our team. It's not just that position. Competition, it'll get the best of them. We'll get, by when it's all said and done, we'll have the best kicker available. We'll have the best punter available. We'll have the best, kickoff cover guy at the 5 spot. And that's what they'll both be better because of this. Steve's had a lot of big kicks and brings a lot to the table with his experience. Over the years, he's had playoff kicks and Super Bowl kicks, literally. But Tyler's a young player with a lot of talent who's really going to push Steve a ton. I'm looking forward to see, we've seen the big kicks, and that's one of the things I had to talk to him about was I love the big kicks. I love the leg strength, but you don't win the job by kicking, 70-yard kicks. You're going to get it because what do you do inside 49 yards? Make every 49 and under, and you can win the job. So, like I said, I'm looking forward to getting these guys out on the field. I'm getting to know them more on a personal level through Zoom and phone calls. They're calling me all the time, as checking in and this and that and going through this and going through communication. But I'm looking forward to getting in front of them and actually getting to see them not only in the field, but in the meeting rooms and getting to talk in my office. And so that'll be exciting to see these guys once they're there.
Yeah, and you're right. As a special teams coordinator, you get a kind of your hand in every position group. You're going to pull from every guy from every group on the roster, and you do have your hand in kind of leading almost 3/4 of the roster because everybody plays special teams at some point. You've got them in a meeting. You probably have interacted with more players maybe than any other coach, other than maybe than Sean McDermott, right? So even both the offense and defensive coordinator, right?
Yeah, Coach, obviously Coach McDermott, speaks to the whole team, but essentially I would make a case that I would probably be the second most, because if I'm not dealing with them on special teams, whether it's offense or defense, all the position players, I'm dealing with them on field goal, I'm coaching our field goal. That's the whole line. So that's what's cool about my position, I think, is to get the opportunity to reach the whole team and to get to know those O-linemen. That's something. A lot of let's say you're a defense coordinator or even a DB coach, you don't know those offensive linemen that well, where I'm actually able to meet with them and get to know them personally. And so I think that is a really cool thing to go across, not just, the receivers and linebackers, safeties, that's the obvious corners, but getting to deal with some of these other positions, tight ends, because all of our guys are going to play special teams. The backups are going to play a ton of them. there are 3 or 4 phase guys, and then even our starters, they all contribute. I got a bunch of guys that beg me to play more of them. They're playing 1 to 2, and some want to play more. So, that's what's cool. You got a good team that wants to be good and care about their teammates, that they're not willing to take a phase off. Like I said, we got a bunch of starters. Jordan Poyer, he begs me to be on the field. He's one of our best players on defense, and here he is. He runs down and kickoffs for me. If I say, hey, I need you this week on a punt rush. Oh, he's the first guy there. He sits in every single meeting. But that's just one of them. We got a ton of those guys that are starters. I already can see. AJ Klein is a guy that comes here from New Orleans. Coach had a prior deal with him in Carolina, but he's one of our best guys in meetings as leadership. He's potential to be our starter. But, I can tell already he's willing and wants to play special teams, is going to contribute. So I think when you have good teams that those starters are willing and want to and encourage to play special teams, it just sets the table for the rest of the team, how important that phase of the game is. So these rookies or say backups, they say, well, if these guys are playing, I better be out there. It is important. It's not an afterthought, like it is on some teams.
One last question for you. The Bills added Tyler Matakevich. He comes from the Steelers. He's somebody who's led the NFL in special teams tackles over the last couple of years, which isn't easy to do. And when he talked to the media, he said, my mentality is see ball, get ball. What have your impressions been so far of Tyler Matakevich?
Yeah, I mean, as I said recently, I think that best describes him. He's going to get the ball. He has a motor. He's physical, he's aggressive, and I've watched him for a couple of years and just was hoping we'd have an opportunity to get him here. We faced him last year. He's a matchup. He's a problem. It shows up on tape that how are we going to block this guy? When I have to stress our guys all week, this guy is a matchup problem. We have to get 2 guys on him. We have to, we have to count for him all over the field. And then we get to Adam. I had a special teams coordinator that's in that division. I don't know if he was more excited to get him out of the division as I was to get him. He texted me right away and said, thank you. And so he's a guy, he has that mentality, get ball. I mean, he is getting the football. He's going there. He's tough. So I think he's going to bring an element to our special teams on the inside to go with their outside. Tywan Jones, Saran Neal, they're going to control it from the outside. But you get a guy like Tyler Matakevich, and you really got some physical presence inside.